Hey guys, it's Aaron from the Baseball Buckley podcast, and we're here with episode 2, and it is my way too early 2020 MLB predictions. By predictions, I mean divisional winners, wild card winners, and then postseason, and then awards. So we're going to start it off with the divisional winners for the American League. In the AL East, it comes down to about 3 teams. The Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Rays. The Rays, I don't think they have enough star power to win a division in which the Yankees and the Red Sox are in. The Red Sox, I said in the last video that they would sign Zach Wheeler in the free agency for their pitching staff. I don't think that's going to help them enough to take over the Yankees and win the division. So I'm going with the New York Yankees to win the AL East, especially with the addition of Madison Bumgarner, as I said in my previous video. And if you haven't seen my previous video, go check out the second video on the channel. It's called 2020 MLB Free Agency Predictions, and you're gonna hear all my predictions for free agency, so that will help tie into this video and who's winning what. Alright, now it's time for the AL Central. It comes down to 2 teams, the Twins and the Cleveland Indians. The Cleveland Indians, I feel like they've had their best days, and those are behind them. I still feel like they're a good enough team to contend for the AL Central, but I feel like if they were in any other division, they would not be in contention. So I feel like the Minnesota Twins will take that. I didn't mention this in my last video, but I feel like Jake Odorizzi will re-sign with the Twins, and that's really going to help their pitching staff, and they'll keep Nelson Cruz and Max Kepler for their hitting, and everything will work out well in Minnesota, and they will win their 2nd straight divisional title. Now out to the West. It comes down to 2 teams once more, and it's the Houston Astros and the Oakland Athletics. I really thought before yesterday that the Oakland Athletics were going to sign Mike Moustakas as a surprise signing, but as you guys know, he ended up going to the the Cincinnati Reds, and so obviously that's not the Oakland Athletics, but I feel like Porcello will sign with them. That's still not going to do enough to contend with the Houston Astros, even losing Garrett Cole. So my prediction is the Houston Astros will win the AL West by probably like 10 to 15 games. It won't really be that close of a divisional race. Now the AL wildcard spot. So if you've listened, it's come down to 3 or 2 teams in each division. For the East, it was the Red Sox and the Rays that didn't win the division, and the Rays are definitely not making a wildcard spot. In the Central, it was the Twins or the Indians, and the Indians didn't win the division, but neither are they getting a wild card spot. In the West, it came down to the Astros and the Athletics. The Astros won the division, so the 2 wild card spots are the Boston Red Sox and the Oakland Athletics. For a little recap, the East, the Yankees win, Central, Twins win, West, Astros win. The wild card game is the Red Sox and the Athletics. Time to move on to the National League. These have 2 of the closest divisional races, in my opinion, and one of them is the NL East. It comes down to the Braves, the Mets, and the reigning World Series champion, Washington Nationals. Now, on the Washington Nationals note, I feel like they will re-sign Strasburg and Rendon, but they're going to have a World Series hangover type season, just as the Red Sox did this past 2019 after winning the 2018 World Series. They will finish 3rd in that division and not get a wild card spot. So that leaves us with the Atlanta Braves and the New York Mets. I feel like the New York Mets, especially if they sign Puig, as I said in the last video, are a good enough team to fight for a division with the Braves, and it will come down to about the last 5 games of the season, but it will not need a game 162 or 163. So in my opinion, the Atlanta Braves, especially with the re-signing of Donaldson and Keuchel, as I mentioned previously, the Braves will win the NL East. The Central, also 3 teams this division comes down to, and I feel like this will be the closest divisional race for the whole 2020 MLB season. It will come down to the St. Louis Cardinals, the Chicago Cubs, and the Milwaukee Brewers. But I feel like the Milwaukee Brewers will not have as good of a season as last year, coming 3rd in the NL Central. But their 3rd place finish will be better than the NL West's second place finish. That's how tight this division's going to be. I say the Brewers lose the division by 5 or 6 games. That leaves us with the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs. The Cardinals won the division last year, and the Cubs missed the playoffs. But I feel like the Cubs are going to have a turnaround season, but it's not going to be enough to overtake the St. Louis Cardinals, and for the second straight year, the St. Louis Cardinals will win their division. I feel like the Cubs just have the potential to win the division with Baez and Rizzo and Bryant and then Darvish and Lester on the mound, but I don't feel like it will be enough to overtake the St. Louis Cardinals. That will probably come down to the last 2 games, and I say the Cardinals win the division by a game. Which leads us out to the NL West, probably the worst division in baseball. There is one team in it that has any shot at the playoffs, and that is the Dodgers. The Padres, the Giants, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks, I feel like with how good I'm predicting the National League to be next year, have no shot, especially the Padres and the Giants. I said the Giants will lose Bumgarner, so those 2 teams have no shot. And then people will say the Rockies and the Diamondbacks have a shot, but I really don't feel like they have a shot unless Blackman and Arenado have a heck of a season for the Rockies. They might squeeze into a wild card spot, but I don't see it, which leaves us the Dodgers winning the division once more with their team of Kershaw and Turner and Seager and Bellinger. They have so many good players on that team that they are a lock to win the NL West next year. The wild card game, as I obviously said, the West will not have anybody in the playoffs other than the divisional winner, the Dodgers. The Central, I said, is the best division, or one of the tightest divisional races, which means one team will probably make the playoffs. And I said that the Brewers will come in third, the Cardinals will win it, which leaves the Chicago Cubs to take one of the 2 wildcard spots for the National League. I said that they have potential, but it's not divisional winner potential, but it is potential to go to a wildcard spot. Now in the NL East, I said it also comes down to 3 teams. The Nationals got the 3 spot, which is not good enough for a wild card. The Braves won the division, which leaves us with the New York Mets. A lot of people will say I'm crazy for saying the Mets going to the wild card game. But I said they're going to sign Puig, and a team with Puig and Alonso and DeGrom and Syndergaard should be enough to get a wild card spot. So for a National League review, it goes the Braves, the Cardinals, and the Dodgers winning their respective divisions, and the wild card game being the Mets and the Cubs. Now we're going to move on to the postseason predictions, starting with the AL wildcard game. Boston Red Sox versus the Oakland Athletics. I feel like those 2 teams next season will be very evenly matched. This might be a little bias playing in here, but I feel like the Red Sox have a better chance at winning a 1-game playoff than the Oakland Athletics do. So the Red Sox are going to take that one and move on to the ALDS. Now for the National League wild card, we have the Mets and the Cubs. 2 teams that I'm predicting have much better seasons than they did last year. But I feel like the Mets pitching will overtake the Cubs pitching because they can decide either to have Syndergaard or DeGrom on the mound, and the Cubs have Lester and Darvish. And obviously Syndergaard and DeGrom are better pitchers. So now we're going to head on to the divisional series. In the AL, we have the Red Sox and the Yankees, one of the best rivalry in all of sports, in my opinion. And the Astros and the Twins, which was a matchup last season. So my prediction for the Red Sox-Yankees is, this kills me to say, I hate the Yankees so much. I love the Red Sox so much. But if I'm being honest, the Yankees will beat the Red Sox in the next ALDS. And I'd say about 4 games. I don't feel like the Red Sox have enough potential to beat a star-studded Yankees team. So the Yankees move on to the ALCS. In the Astros versus Twins matchup, I didn't really even have the Astros playing amazing next season. So I feel like the Twins will play better, and I think that Odorizzi next season is going to have a heck of a year, and he'll be able to beat Verlander enough that the Twins will win Game 1 and take a demanding lead on the series, but the Twins will win that series in 4 games. So that means the ALCS matchup will be the New York Yankees and the Minnesota Twins. Now we're going to head on to the National League. The NLDS is the Mets and the Dodgers, and the Cardinals and the Braves, which was a matchup last year. So the Mets Dodgers will be the Mets. I feel like their pitching is better than the Dodgers, but I feel like the Mets will not be able to pull out the win in this series, as the Dodgers are just such an overpowering team that they will take home that win in about 4 games. The Mets might have Syndergaard or DeGrom win one of those games. So, next up, we had the Cardinals and the Braves, a rematch of last year. I feel like the Cardinals and the Braves aren't very evenly matched, and the Braves will take that series in 3 games. So that means the NLTS is the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves. So over on to the ALCS, the New York Yankees and the Minnesota Twins. And the Yankees will win that series without a problem. Probably 5 games. They might lose 1 to Minnesota with Jake Odorizzi pitching. But I don't see the Twins winning that series. Which means the Yankees are the American League champions and move on to the World Series, which kills me to say. So now for the National League, we had the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves. If you couldn't tell all video, I've been hyping up the Atlanta Braves, and they will win the National League against the Dodgers. Probably the best series of the postseason, the second best series of the postseason, and they'll win it in 7 games. Which moves on to the World Series. The 2020 World Series is the New York Yankees and the Atlanta Braves. I've been saying both teams are amazing, and they will have amazing years next year. And the World Series will be the best series of next year's postseason, but the Braves will take it in 7 games. So my prediction is the Braves will be the 2020 World Series champions, with the World Series MVP being Ronald Acuna Jr. A lot of people will say, well, Acuna is the best player, and normally the best player doesn't win World Series MVP on the team that wins the World Series. I feel like that is true most of the time, but next year Acuna will win it. So this is going to take us right into our awards. And first we're going to start off with the Cy Young Award. And we're going to start National League to American League this time. In the National League, I feel like it will be a repeat, and Jacob deGrom will win the Cy Young. I feel like his pitching is just so amazing that he will dominate next year and win his 3rd Cy Young Award. Now in the AL, I'm going to give it to the guy that should have won it last year, Garrett Cole. As I've said previously, he's staying in the American League with either the Angels or the Yankees, but I have him going to the Angels. So that gives him his Cy Young Award that he should have won last year. Rookie of the Year. This is hard because there's not as many names being talked about this season as there was last season with Vladimir Guerrero, Pete Alonso, all those guys. But I'm a Red Sox fan, as I mentioned hundreds of times before, and I've been following Bobby Dahlbeck, the second baseman in the Red Sox farm system. He's had a great farm system venture through single A Lowell Spinners up to triple A Pawtucket Red Sox. And I feel like if the Red Sox call him up and have him play second base over Dustin Pedroia, which they should, he will win American League Rookie of the Year. For the National League, as I said earlier, this is a hard choice because there's not as many guys being talked about. So I looked through prospect rankings on MLB.com. I looked through stats and everything. And the player that stood out to me the most is from the St. Louis Cardinals, Dylan Carlson. He hit .292 last year, not amazingly, but he was AA and AAA, and he put 26 home runs on the stats. So 26 home runs in AA and AAA is something that really stood out to me. So if the Cardinals call him up and have him play in the outfield along with Marcell Ozuna, he will win National League Rookie of the Year. Now we're going to move on to Coach of the Year. In the American League, it is Bob Melvin of the Oakland Athletics. I feel like he is such a good coach. His team doesn't have the star power that other teams have, and he still manages to make the playoffs every year. Now for the National League, I have Dave Martinez, the manager of the Washington Nationals. And I have his team finishing third in the division. But I feel like he's a good enough manager, which was showcased during the postseason last year, that he can win National League Manager of the Year award. For the MVP, the big award, in the AL, it's going to be Alex Bregman. He will have a stellar year next year at third base for the Astros, enough to win them the division, but not make it much farther than that. I feel like he's a good player and will win American League MVP. Now for the National League, I feel like this will be the best player in baseball by far next year. I've mentioned his name a few times, and that is Ronald Acuna Jr. I love this guy. He's such a good player, and I feel like he'll be the best player in baseball next year. So young. He'll win the World Series MVP, and the MVP. Mookie Betts couldn't do that in 2018 when the Red Sox won the World Series. He only got 2 of those, normal MVP and World Series champion. I feel like Acuna will hit anywhere in the 295 to 300 range and hit over 40 home runs, which is a lot. So that's going to wrap up all these predictions. I got a couple shout-outs to throw in at the end of this video for people that have helped me out with shout-outs. So I'm going to put in One Jump Ahead podcast. Go check him out if you love Disney. He's really good. He knows what he's talking about. He's the one that actually influenced me to start my podcast channel, so go check him out. Now, I have 2 sports podcasts. I have another one about baseball. His name is Chris Topper's Baseball Podcast. And I'll put these guys in the description. So, Chris Topper's Baseball Podcast, he has 1 episode so far. And actually me, I'm in it. And the next person I'm going to shout out, which is Basketball Brighton. I'm actually on his channel for his basketball podcasts. And actually, I have 2 podcasts on there about baseball with him in it. So go check those 3 channels out. One Jump Ahead podcast for everything Disney. Chris Topper's Baseball Podcast for baseball podcasts with me and and Basketball Brighton. And then go check out Basketball Brighton for some amazing basketball podcasts. Thanks for listening. And please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Peace out.